Hello, and welcome to TableTalk Friday, your weekly dose of D&D hosted by three boys in a bedroom. If you like their style, you can follow them on Instagram, YouTube, and other social media platforms. And now, back to the boys.
All right, well, you forced my hand, so I guess I'll just talk about Elden Ring again.
No.
I don't want to bore our listeners by talking more about Elden Ring, but you've just forced my hand. Minor spoilers for the end game of Elden Ring. I'm so close to the end, but I really just need to talk about Melania for a second. This boss is so hard. So I don't play video games during the weekday. That's just sort of my thing. I'm not in the mood after work, so I usually wait until the weekend if I'm going to play anything at all. It's going to be on, Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday. I have not made any progress. Not since last Sunday, last Saturday, last Friday. No, I haven't even made any progress since last Saturday. Or the week before that. The Saturday
before.
2 weeks. Yeah, it's been 2 whole weeks that I've been trying to fight Melania, Blade of Mikola, and I spent an hour and a half fighting this boss, and I thought that was it. There's a second phase. You get her down, and she keeps fighting you. And oh my god, I refuse to change my build. I've put too much effort into it with my big-ass hammer, and I'm going to beat her with my big-ass hammer. But when it gets to the second phase, I just don't know what to do. I know how to play the game.
Do you, Zach?
No, well, it doesn't feel like it anymore.
So true. This boss has been talked about in a lot of spaces. Like, a lot of people have talked about how this boss is way too hard, or they've been fighting her. And now in the Souls game, I don't know if way too hard is like an excuse or not, because there's a lot of the fan base that finds that to be the most enjoyable part is fighting a boss for 4 or 5 hours until they beat it. That's what a lot of people find enjoyable. But apparently this one is just tough.
Yeah, and so just for context, I've played all the other Souls games. No boss has taken me a quarter of the time that I've been fighting Melania. I've been fighting Melania for 9 hours. And, some of it is my unwillingness to budge. I've seen that bleed weapons work really well. Bows apparently are actually pretty good against her. I could bring in summons. I could be doing all these things to make it easier on myself, but I refuse. Because I've put in the time for my faith strength build, and I'm going to beat Melania the way that
paladin build, your classic paladin build?
Yes, absolutely. If I'm going to be playing a game for 89 hours, which I've played this game for 89 hours now, I'm going to be a paladin. Got my big fucking hammer, and one day I'm going to win. So anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you for listening to Table Talk Friday. Follow us on all your social media platforms. Good night.
So we've talked about Sonic on this podcast a couple of times now, and I had a little run-in with Sonic today where one of my kids that was bad. One of my kids was running a course, and I jokingly said, "He's the fastest thing alive," which popped into my head as, like the theme song from Sonic Saturday. He's the fastest thing alive. And I was thinking about that, and I looked over at my kids, and I went, "You watch Sonic?" And they were like, "Which one?" And I said, "The one that goes, he's the fastest." I said that, and they looked at me like I was the dumbest person on earth. And
That's not a Sonic, you idiot.
They're like, "That's not Sonic." They're probably thinking like Sonic Boom, Sonic Underground, maybe even Sonic X if they were old enough for that. And we didn't mention Sonic X at all on the episode we talked about Sonic, and I think that's a damn shame because Sonic X is not good, but it's great.
Well, it's where Gotta Go Fast comes from. It was, I'm not going to stand here and defend Sonic X. That show is bad. But
it's bad.
But I loved it as a kid.
Yeah, me too. And then Season 3 is actually good, though. The Metarex arc.
Oh, I never made it there.
Oh, Season 3 is kind of like, it's like a 6 out of 10 on as like a space odyssey, because they go to space the whole time.
Right.
And Tails gets a girlfriend and stuff happens, and it's all great. I'd say the Metarex arc is actually a watchable show, and then the rest of it is like just junk food. It's like, hey, do you want to just eat thousands of calories and not taste it? Me too. That's what the rest of Sonic X is, because I've watched Sonic X numerous times. I even rewatched it like 2 years ago just to like get the taste of it again. And I'm like, man, it's not that great, especially when they go into the adventure arcs in the show. The adventure arcs are bad compared to the games.
So put my mind at ease here. How many seasons of Sonic are there?
There's 3 seasons of Sonic X. The first one being more of like an episodic deal where they're going in and out of just like different little adventures. He makes friends with a racer guy who drives a race car like super fast. It's like Sonic speeds. And he
they're actually enemies, Seth, because he thinks that he's the fastest thing alive.
Yeah,
and then
but
he meets
Sonic destroys him in this race.
Really?
So what he does is at the end of the episode, spoilers for this one-off episode of Sonic X where he races a speed racer guy. He crosses the finish line, and it looks like the race car guy kind of wins, or like they tied. But then they play back the footage for like replay, and Sonic had run across the finish line without breaking the tape, went up to the camera and like did like a little jokey face at it, like slapped his butt at it a little bit, and then ran back across and finished with the guy to make it look like it was a photo finish. So he had already finished like 10 seconds before.
Sonic's a toxic gamer.
Yeah, exactly.
He was basically teabagging at the finish line right
He really
there.
is.
Yeah. So that happened. The second, I believe the whole second season is pretty much just the adventure arc. So the Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 games that are very, very fond in my childhood. I have them both on my Xbox Series S downloaded in the other room just in case I ever want to play. Those games are amazing. And the stories in those games are actually really good, even though they're like old games. They're from the Dreamcast. And the way they did it in Sonic X is just bad. Some characters that meant things just don't make any sense. The way that the characters are written, everything's just a little too fast. They change the things that shouldn't be changed. And then the third season is all about the Meta-Rexes, which are these like space warforged, basically, that look like dragons.
What? There's dragons in Sonic?
Yeah, they're like half organic, half metal, like space creatures. So they're kind of like a warforged would be in D&D.
Look, I'm going to be real with you. And this all sounds really cool, all these different arcs and, character development, all that. I was thinking there was, he runs fast season. Then there was the next season where, he runs slightly faster. And the third one, he runs too fast. Like that was it.
No, he doesn't ever get more and more powerful. I mean, he gets supersonic form and everything at some points. But did I mention that the first 2 seasons, he's actually on Earth? And then the last season, he's back on his planet in his dimension. The third season, first 2 seasons, he comes to Earth and makes friends with a human kid named Chris Thorndike, the absolute trash character that he was.
Yeah, it sounds like Ash Ketchum. I mean, it's like the plot of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, except it's a sniveling child in an anime, and it's just the worst.
And he has this, bond with Sonic, but Sonic only ever treats him like trash. And then Chris only ever acts like a little baby. He never does anything of note.
I got you some food you might like. Ew, what is this stuff? It's cat food. I remember that fondly.
Yep, from the first episode.
Uh-huh.
And then the last episode, so in season 2, spoilers again for Sonic X, if anyone cares, they go back to their home dimension. Like, they find a way to open a portal to take them back home, and they're like, goodbye, Chris, we'll never see you again. That's where the show, could have possibly ended. But that they did a third season where Chris has been obsessed for his whole life on how to get back with Sonic and the gang. And he finds a way to open a portal, but time moves differently in this other dimension that they're from. So he steps through as an adult and comes through the other side in his kid form. I'm not joking with you, Zach. This is true. He comes through the other side in his kid form, and he's wearing his like lab coat and everything when he was an adult. And Sonic's there, and he's like, Chris? And Chris is like, yeah. And he's like looking around at his hands and stuff. He's like, oh my gosh, why am I a kid? And they're like, time moves differently here. Of course it does. Of course it does.
That's how I got so fast.
Yeah. Would you really de-age though if time moved differently? Don't you think you would just age slower?
Yeah. I mean, that would be a logical thought.
I think this is still the better arc though, because where I thought you were going with it is this kid steps through this, time differing area and all of a sudden he's faster than Sonic, right?
Oh,
so now
no,
he's
no.
racing this kid that's trying to hang out with him.
No, Chris is lame. And and did I mention like on the other end where right after he gets here, the spacemen attack or like a flower girl comes down from space and they all go to space to help her, like on their spaceships.
I've seen like little bits and pieces of the later seasons of Sonic X, but only in early 2000s AMVs on YouTube in 144p with just bad butt rock playing in the background. And I remember this specifically because there are so many scenes of Shadow the Hedgehog beating people up.
Yeah, but
like,
he's so good in the third season because like they actually fire Sonic and Shadow from a cannon on their spaceship because they're like in their ball form and it's so cool. Okay, it's so cool. Like watching that scene, I'm like, oh, that's lit. I want to do that with Sonic and Shadow, like them spinning in circles, like in their homing attack form or whatever you call it when they're like balled up and spinning real quick.
They have homing attacks?
Yeah, that's from like all the Sonic games. What, you never played a Sonic game?
No,
that's
no,
lame.
absolutely not.
Well, actually, first he had the spin dash, which was different than the homing
there we go.
attack.
So they're like spin dashing basically, and they're like bouncing around inside this cannon. They like load it up and it charges, and they shoot it through these big like metal dragon monsters. It's cool.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that. Also, Sonic turns evil Super Sonic at one point.
Yeah, because he gets angry about something. I forget why, but he like gets dark and angry. And he's about to go, like full Dark Sonic, which doesn't make any sense. We've only seen it once, and it's in that show. And Dr. Eggman is the one to talk him out of it. of all people, Eggman is like, whoa, buddy, slow down. You don't want to go Dark Sonic. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And so he stops. And he reverts back to normal. And it's like, oh, okay, well, this Sonic that was like all powerful for a second could have just killed everybody by going Dark Sonic. And then Eggman's like, whoa, stop, please. And it's fine.
I feel like that's a redundant choice because, we already have a Dark Sonic. It's Shadow the Hedgehog.
Well, but he's not, though. Shadow was just Vegeta from Dragon Ball.
And You mean Dark Goku?
But he's not dark, though.
No.
That's the thing. He's just
that's Goku Black.
He's just misunderstood.
Now,
oh my God.
I don't want to go too deep
go ahead,
into this lore, but I do have a question because I remember playing my little Nintendo. It was like Olympics with Sonic or something like that.
Yeah, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, my favorite game ever. I loved playing as a kid. I always played as Shadow because he was super cool. Where does he come from? Is he also an alien?
Oh, no. You don't want to open that can of worms.
That is such a loaded question.
Because Shadow the Hedgehog is actually an android created to be the perfect weapon.
Wait, he's not real?
Nope, he's an android.
No. But first, he was the ultimate life form. He was an organic something or other created by Black Doom, the evil alien monster creature. So Shadow is, he's a biomechanical humanoid weapon thing created by aliens. And then he dies at the end of Sonic Adventure 2, but then he comes back and Eggman makes him think that he's an android, but then you learn later that he's not. So that's the story of Shadow the Hedgehog right there.
I am the ultimate life form.
And the worst fucking thing, in the game Shadow the Hedgehog, there are multiple endings. At the different endings, they explain the origin of Shadow differently. So you only get the truth that he's an alien, I think, in the true ending, for which you have to get all the other fucking endings of this terrible, terrible game.
So,
and I did do this as a child, so that's how I know.
Listen, Drew, the ultimate life form is an alien. Also in the shape of a hedgehog.
Is this the Black Doom?
Who also just looks like Sonic for no reason.
Yeah, no, this is Shadow. Shadow is the ultimate life form, as like that's his subtext. If you had Shadow the Hedgehog, right underneath it should say ultimate life form.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But you know what Sonic has a lot of? Different races. Welcome to Table Talk Friday. On this episode, we're going to talk about races. We're going to delve deep into the lore of, and our opinions on different races in Dungeons and Dragons. My name is Seth Pittman. I'm joined here by Zachary Carvon and Andrew Romano. And
you're just going to double name me like that. What are you, my mom?
Don't take my name, Zach.
And guys, I mean, I gotta be honest here. I don't think we're gonna make it all the way through the Player's Handbook races, so I don't want to. I kind of want to focus on the Player's Handbook to start with this episode.
Well, it might have helped if we didn't talk about Sonic the Hedgehog for 20 minutes straight, but
I think it was only like let's see. 18 minutes or so that we talked about it, and we're going to
Oh,
cut
it's
out
fine
like
then.
3 of those, so it's fine.
Oh yeah.
Perfect. Well, so the first thing that I'm noticing, I'm looking at the player's handbook now, and I don't see any anthropomorphic hedgehog race. So that's interesting. I think we should contact Wizards of the Coast to make sure that we get that revision in the next version.
You know, I do see this one really interesting race on here, though. It's called the Human. And I think we should start from there because that is the base race equivalent of, a real person in the real world. So let's start from humans in D&D. Humans in D&D can be seen, in all different forms of society, whether it's all the way up at the very tippy top of the hierarchy or like all the way at the very bottom. I feel like they're the kind of the all-around race that you can choose, while you'll expect, elves have a little bit of nobility, or if they're a drow, a little bit of like shadiness to them. All the way onto the other side where you got like your dwarves, who are just like typically known as like your inventors, your miners, things like that.
Craftsmen.
All different things that are fluid in the game, but human is one that you can see doing anything. So thoughts, guys, on the human race in the player's handbook as it is.
Well, and so I suppose just for any layperson, we should also specify when we talk about race in D&D, it's sort of a nebulous concept. So there are plenty of different fantasy peoples, and so in the player's handbook, or in Dungeons and Dragons in general, we refer to different subsets of like humanoid-looking creatures as races. So. An elf is a race, a kobold is a race. We're not necessarily talking about, skin color and that sort of thing.
Right.
But so for humans, you can be, any typical human that you would see in the real world. And, humans are a great baseline character for someone who's new to the game or who's looking for like a specific brand of fantasy. If you think about Lord of the Rings, it can't exist without humans. But the humans are, as Seth, you were saying, they're like this blank canvas where they don't necessarily have to be anything because we know what humans are like, and it's very difficult to put them all in one box.
Right.
So that's sort of a human can be a great fit for any particular class. So in the player's handbook, there are 2 options for humans. You either get your standard human, where you get rather than all the other races that have special features, and then get +2 in one stat and +1 in another. They actually get +1 to all of their ability scores when you create a human character, just sort of speaking to their versatility. Alternatively, you could also go a variant human, and so what that does is I believe it's +1 in 2 stats.
I believe so. You get a feat, and then I think you get +1 in 2 stats.
That sounds about right because it balances out with the feet very well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. But they get a feat. So, and that's just again allowing you to specialize your human in whatever particular way.
Which I would say 90% of the time, if I'm playing a human, I'm playing the variant of human. So I'm playing a variant human for that feat.
So let me make it very clear. There's a correct way to play a human, and there's a wrong way to play a human. Always go variant human.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like unless you rolled all odd numbers and you want to even those out by getting +1s and everything, then, I mean, variant human is just going to give you everything you want, especially with the fact that a lot of feats have +1s to stats. So would you rather have a +1 in everything, or would you rather just pick a feat that's going to equal that out and give you an extra ability?
Do you want to be normal, or do you want to be fun?
Yeah.
Do you want to have a super cool ability? I mean, just do you.
And there's nothing better than being able to start out at level 1 and also already have, like, the dual wielder feat.
Cool.
So humans are, by default, they're the most versatile of the races. Not too much to talk about. It's sort of a meme to talk about, like, I'm generic human fighter, because there's, a million of them. But I think in recent years, Wizards of the Coast has sort of stepped back and said, well, maybe we don't like that we've made a bunch of racial traits that are making sweeping statements about a bunch of different types of, fantasy creatures.
Right.
So we see now that the human has the ability to customize however you want, but a lot of the other races have that ability too. So at this point, just like from a, optimizing your character standpoint, variant human is great for a feat. You also get a skill and +1 in 2 different stats. That's nothing to sneeze at, but it's also not, that impressive, just mechanically speaking.
Right, and nowadays we also have in Tasha's the choose your own
Custom lineage.
Yeah, custom lineage, which not necessarily the way I've kind of used it thus far is I've kind of just taken what I want from the background, and I know what custom lineage is. That's supposed to be determined as like a new race or whatever, like like is it supposed to be a bond of something we don't have, like a half dwarf or something like that, or does it matter like which race you choose? Is it like, oh, if I want to have a Harengon with just different abilities, like I don't really want the base Harengon abilities, is that something I can do?
So I've never thought about a specific way of the custom lineage working, because I always thought it was sort of a customized your own character sort of a vibe.
Yeah.
But usually the way that I think about it, and I've used it a few times, I actually really enjoy it, is I take usually a human and I give it some sort of physical features of another race that I like. So I'll take a human, and in one case I gave him the ears of a Harengon, right? So he had bunny ears, right? Or you could take a human and give him dragon scales going up and down his arms, because that's cool. Why wouldn't you want to have some cool scales? But I see it more as a mashup. I'm not sure if you guys have a specific spot for it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, so I like the custom lineage because it allows me to think of monstrous races that haven't, or aren't currently in 5th edition.
Right.
And, no fuss, no muss. I don't have to worry about, homebrewing my own version and how well that balances versus the other players at the table. Now there's just an option for me to say, okay, I get +2 to 1 ability score, I get a feat, and I can get dark vision or proficiency in a skill. That's perfect. And so that's, a balanced option for me to say, yes, now finally I will play the half ogre character of my dreams.
Right.
Which I've been sitting on. I haven't done a custom lineage yet, but that's going to be my custom lineage.
Yeah, I think it's fun.
It's pretty enjoyable. You feel pretty balanced the whole time. And I've never thought about it until just now, but I guess it's kind of like the point buy of the race selection screen, if you will. It's kind of just the safe go-to if nothing else sort of works out or floats your fancy.
I think it gives you the most to work with, too. Like, I'd say, honestly, in my thought process, I don't know if this is the interpreted way, but if someone said, hey, can I just be a lizard folk, but can I go with, like, a custom lineage? I'd be like, I mean, yeah, sure. Like, if you want to be of, like, a descent of some lizard folk, but you don't want the typical, like, or like with dwarves and them automatically getting like stone cunning, it's like, okay, I want a custom lineage because I don't want stone cunning, I'd be okay with that because I'm like, okay, yeah, if your dwarf wouldn't have stone cunning, like we don't need that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you get a feat is definitely very powerful. I will say, though, one reason that I've stayed away from custom lineage up to this point is there's just a bunch of interesting options that you can get into with some of these races. Dwarves, for example, yes, they have stone cunning, but dwarves also have resistance to poison. And,
hill dwarves have the +1 health per level.
Yeah, exactly. So, obviously, those are sort of cultural touchstones of dwarves. They're resistant to poison because they live in mines and drink a lot of alcohol. But your dwarf doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So, a custom lineage sort of hand waves that away and lets you do what you want with it.
I think more than anything, it's a great tool for DMs that are trying to run games for newer players. Like Seth was saying, if someone wants to be a fairy before the fairy came out, it helps a lot with giving them more options.
Right.
They don't have to be exact.
Right, and it also gives you a nice, if you're wanting to change your whole setting and say, okay, well, here's this fantasy race that I made up, now it's a custom lineage, and you can base it off of that. It's a perfectly balanced option. Not that everything always has to be balanced, but if that's something that you are concerned about in your game, there you go.
Well, I think that was a good rundown of like creating your own lineages and stuff. But why don't we hop into just from the very top of what we got here in the player's handbook and talk about our thoughts on dwarves in general. We already kind of started talking about them. So dwarves in general, I find to be some of my favorite characters. Not only because there's so much you can do with them as far as like inventing or enchanting or just that idea of being the dwarf with like the hammer and the shield and like the big suit of armor is just fun to me, like being the warlord dwarf, but also their abilities are great. Stone cunning is the one that I would put to the side, which gives you advantage on like architectural checks. But something that I really like about dwarves, not only their resistance to poison, but yes, that +1 health per level, because that really gives you a good break, especially you take something like the tough feat. along with that, you've got so much health on top of that, especially if you're playing a class that's a little abnormal for dwarves. You might play a wizard or a sorcerer dwarf, and getting that extra health per level is going to be very helpful down the line.
Yeah, and dwarfs just have a lot of options. I mean, so like most other races that we'll find as we go through, in the player's handbook, they do have dark vision, allows them to see in total darkness as though it were dim light.
Right.
They have their resilience, so they have advantage on saving throws against poison and resistance to all poison damage. They get their combat training for use with battle axes, hand axes, light hammers, and war hammers, regardless of class. So you can be a martial wizard just because you chose the dwarf option. They get tool proficiency and stone cutting, and they get their sub-race, which hill dwarf is amazing. They get their extra health. But mountain dwarf isn't too much to sneeze at either, because they do get proficiency with light and medium armor. Amazing for like a wizard who wants to be an armored martial dwarf. And they get a +2 to their strength score, in addition to their original +2 to their constitution, making them the only race that can have a +2/+2 at level 1.
You've now made me want to play a dwarf sorcerer with that wears armor and has like a big axe or like a large hammer or something like that, and cast through like banging it on the ground and things like. Oh, I love it. I wanna play a dwarf with a sorcerer now.
Yeah, you don't need blade singer. You've got dwarf.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't mention the most important thing about dwarves, which is they have a 25 movement speed. So, so I'm going to say it is the best thing about dwarves, and it's also the absolute worst thing, because I love nothing more than trying to flavor that as a dwarf. Just say, you start off the campaign, oh, you have a bad leg, or oh, you're a swashbuckler.
Well, the reason
dwarf.
they have 25 speed is because they're little.
Yeah, but it's just so fun to be the one guy that's always left behind, or he's in the back.
I mean,
of the
you can
group.
make a human with a bad leg, and I'll just tell you have 25 speed, and I just nerf you.
But that's not as fun. Though. That's not as fun. You have to be the dwarf, and you have to be just, I guess, the cripple of the group. You have to be in the back. You have to be struggling to keep up. It's just super fun.
You get 25 speed for the whole campaign, but I'll give you 1 extra health, like total.
1 whole extra. I'll take
one
it.
whole extra hit point for the whole campaign.
I think it's a good trade.
I just read something about dwarves that I never knew before, and I've played a few dwarf characters.
Yeah. What is it?
Their speed is 25 feet, but their speed is also not reduced by wearing heavy armor.
Oh.
So, also a feature that we do not ever have come up at our
I
table.
never think about that.
But if your strength score is too low to wear a specific type of heavy armor, the armor reduces your speed by 10 feet, unless they have a strength score equal to or higher than the listed score.
Okay.
So, a weak dwarf can still wear heavy armor and not have 15 feet of movement, which just seems terrible.
Just imagine this frail dwarf just like huffing it, like pulling this heavy armor. He's like, oh no, I've been wearing this stuff for a long time.
Yeah, they wear it as babies so that they get used to it.
Yeah, they're born and immediately get armor put on them.
Uh-huh.
While I can't think of a practical use for this, I think as a DM, I would love to create just this juggernaut slow character that's coming after the party, and it's just a heavy armored dwarf that has 15 feet of movement.
All right. Let's move on from dwarves then. Elves. Elves are up next because elves are probably my favorite race. I love me some good elves. Now, I've played dwarves, I played elves, I played humans, I've played a Warforged. So those are kind of the ones I have experience in. Love Warforged, but we're probably not going to get there this episode. We'll probably have to have a separate one with like the expansion races.
Yeah, all the monsters of the multiverse. We'll probably cover them when we can finally get our hands on that friggin' book.
Well, I think I already... No, I haven't pre-ordered that one. I did pre-order Journey from the Radiant Citadel, which is the new module coming out, which is going to be fun. But elves in general are like my favorite race. There are so many different ways you can flavor them. First of all, high elves get their extra cantrip. They're more of a noble statured people. If you're going to play a bard and you play a high elf bard, oh, everyone's going to hate you at the table.
Yeah, you pompous friggin' jerk.
Oh, and I'm good at playing the pompous character, man.
Yeah.
So high elves, love them to death. They're so cool. Elves also get dark vision, as well as they only have to meditate to sleep. So they meditate for 4 hours instead of sleeping for 8. And then
It's actually called a trance.
A trance, whatever.
Yeah, same thing.
I treat it as meditation. And then finally, they cannot be charmed or put to sleep by magic, if I'm correct, right?
Correct. Yep, because of their Fey ancestry.
Right. So elves in general, amazing, love them. They automatically have a cantrip, which is awesome. And yeah, what else do you guys think about elves?
Well, in particular, I love. So you're talking about high elves with their cantrip, but I really like the wood elf options. Which, I love dwarves
Yeah, sorry,
so much.
there are no other elves than high elves. Like, that's it.
Yeah, so dwarves, I love that. I didn't even mention, I love the fact that they have 25 speed because it makes them distinct, and even though it can be a hindrance to the party, it gives them so much character, which is why I will never take squat nimbleness unless I really want it. Because it just makes you stand out in those moments where your speed is important.
Right.
But anyway, wood elves, on the other hand, get 35 feet as their base walking speed,
Which
so
is
5
great.
extra. Imagine for a moment a wood elf monk with additional speed, and then boots of striding and springing, or just
Or like
boots of speed.
Does the mobile feat up your speed? No, I don't think it does.
Yeah, it does.
It
That's
does.
an extra
by 10
10
feet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you take the mobile feat, you're just a fast moving elf.
Yep.
Do I hear a speed build, boys? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. Well, a wood elf is a good speed build. It's not as good as a tabaxi though.
Yeah, tabaxi are
Oh,
better.
It's true.
But and they also can attempt to hide even when they're lightly
You know what else
obscured
is
by
a good
foliage.
speed build? Rogue.
Yeah. A wood elf rogue would also work perfectly. But yeah, they also get their elf weapon training, which I think do high elf. Yeah, all elves get elf weapon training. I don't know why they specify.
Yeah, I think they get longbow and like is it rapier?
Long sword, short bow, and long bow. And that's true for high elves as well. But drow, which is the third type of elf, they're the
Yes.
dark elves.
Yep.
Drow get drow weapon training, so they get rapiers, short swords, and hand crossbows.
I think drow are super cool, but I hate any class that has to, or any race that has to have their eyesight impeded on. Like, not everybody lives in caves, guys.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I get that. Yes, drows are particularly come from the Underdark, but I mean, what if I want to play a drow from Waterdeep? If I want to play a drow from Waterdeep, I shouldn't have my eyesight impeded. I've been living in the sun for my whole life.
Well, so here's my issue with sunlight sensitivity. Just as a person with common knowledge who lives in the 21st century, why don't they just wear sunglasses?
Right?
I feel like that would solve the problem.
Magic glasses, magic sunglasses, easy.
Yeah, and honestly, that's probably what I would allow my players to do that if someone decided to play a drow and I keep sending them in overworld adventures. Like, okay, fine. You get your slightly more powerful version of an elf with your 120 feet of dark vision, and you get sunglasses. For a kobold, I would extend no such luxury. They get pack tactics. But for a drow, sure, why not?
See, that's where I have a problem with the drow, because I absolutely love the style of a drow. I imagine like these purple skinned people with like white hair. They can see super cool through the dark. It's like they have superior.
I believe
dark
they have
vision,
like
right?
grayish skin, Drew.
Yeah, but this is what I'm thinking though. This is what I have in my head, right?
Yeah.
So, and they could be a good variety of colors because of the way their skin works in the Underdark, right? Because they don't get a lot of sun. So I imagine
Yeah, I
they
have
can
noticed
change the
like
color
those
quite a bit.
kind of those days that like I stay inside more and play
Yeah.
more video games. My skin does get a little purple.
I have noticed that. Yes.
Zach just looking at himself.
We're all kind of pale right now, guys.
Well, it's the start of spring, okay?
yeah. I'll go outside soon.
But as cool as the drow are, because I think they're super flavorful, the only reason I don't play a drow, I think I've maybe played it once before and it was a one-shot, is because when you're in a situation where you're going to play with your friends in a slightly long-term campaign, even if it's just 10 sessions, 5 sessions, I don't want to have to deal with the sunlight the whole time. I don't want so many drawbacks, or worse, a new player comes to my table and they want to play this drow, they're super into it, and I have to tell them, well, I mean, it might not be a great idea to do that.
You wear a hat.
Exactly, but you have to think about changing these things, and I don't like that it starts off that way in the book.
I think
you know?
aren't they taking sunlight sensitivity away in Monsters of the Multiverse?
I've heard they are, but I'm not certain.
They've definitely done it for kobolds. I know that for a fact. I haven't checked for drow.
Okay.
But here's my take. Drow are inherently, like, the way that they're written, these are the villains. Like, this is an evil character for an evil party. I feel like if I were playing, Out of the Abyss, or an Underdark themed campaign, absolutely I want to play a drow. But otherwise, I could take it or leave it.
But what about Dritzt?
Yeah,
Come on.
But there is Dritzt, the very famous, very popular, chaotic, good drow. And, in our games, drow are almost exclusively, neutral or not evil.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had an arc with drow specifically. I mean, maybe one day we will, but we haven't had drow come up where they're just absolute assholes or anything.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't like having that conversation. Like, say, if I were playing D&D with a group of players that I haven't, played with before, having people say, well, aren't they evil? Okay, well, no, these ones aren't necessarily, or maybe they are. But
that's when I go social justice warrior and I go, excuse me, not all drow are evil. I've done that to players before where they're like, well, aren't goblins bad? And I'm like, not all goblins are bad though. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, Olafir in Ghost of Saltmarsh, he's a half drow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and he's not evil.
I had no clue.
Right,
he's
right.
never explained that, I don't think.
No, but he's a cleric of what, Salune or
The Twilight.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's a fairly good segue into another problem I have with elves. I'm gonna be the Debbie Downer of the episode on elves. I like elves. I think they can be fun. They can be very
so much that
flavorful.
they're your favorite.
Yeah, so much. They're so much my favorite that I've lapped it. Now, the problem is when I play an elf, I feel obligated to have a certain voice. And I feel the same way about dwarves, right? It's very safe, right? I have no problem playing an elf or a dwarf quick on the fly, right? But if I play a character such as a Long Death monk, and I don't have a particularly pompous high elf voice, it's hard for anyone to relate. People forget, that's your race. That's what you look like. It's very difficult, and you're kind of put
I do
into a
find it
box.
hard to relate to any character that's not a pompous jerk.
sick burn on yourself.
Myself, hey, self-deprecating humor, baby. No, I don't really have that problem. I mean, I think that we all have limited capacity to what voices we can do, especially when it comes to DMing, and I can pretty much find quirks to relate to any character when in the game, regardless of if you tell me they're an elf and I'm picturing them in my head as an elf and they still talk something like this, I'm still gonna put two and two together and imagine them as an elf, but with a little more gruff tone, a little more maybe they got some stubble.
Yeah, and I think elves, or just as much as dwarves, are very culturally a monolith as far as if you think about a fantasy elf, they all look like Lord of the Rings. Same with dwarves. So it's definitely interesting if you can get elves out of that space in your game. But at the same time, I do like the ability to think, oh, well, that's an elf. I know sort of what they're going to be like. They're, reserved and stay away from modern society because they're so advanced and whatever. I don't particularly like elves either. I'm gonna be on Drew's side on this argument. I think
they don't have to be sides. We all just have opinions.
No,
It's okay to be different.
There's sides. There's right and wrong. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, half elves
I was literally gonna segue into half elves.
I love, but full elves, I could take it or leave it.
Yeah, so why don't we jump into half-elves, guys? What's different about half-elves? What makes them different from your high elves, your drow, your wood elves, and why are they so cool? Because I agree that half-elves are super cool. They've got that charismatic nature about them, something that makes them, a cut above the rest. When a half-elf is walking around, when a half-elf enters the room, it's like, that guy's cool.
Well, they get a +2 to charisma and a +1 in 2 other stats. So that makes them optimally mechanically superior. Or with Tasha's, you could even do a +2 in whatever you want and a +1 to 2 different stats in whatever you want. So that's really good. But I like half elves more because they're relatable. They're half human, and there's no pressure to be any particular way.
Well, when your dad goes out and bangs a hot elf, and then you have your cool half elf son.
Yeah, or you're Morwyn, and both your parents are half elves.
Yeah, I mean, fine.
Yeah. Well, his mom was a high elf, and his dad was a wood elf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you can't have a half elf without a full elf.
Yeah, absolutely. But so I love half elves for their versatility. I love them for just their general. You can place them anywhere, and they're inherently a little bit more unique. which make good, like protagonist-y type characters, because you're not going to find a half-elf everywhere. But they're just a nice, if you want to do like a self-insert character, but I refuse to play a human, play a half-elf.
I think of characters like Link and Zelda as like half-elfish characters. You know, when you look at them,
okay.
the Hylians from the Zelda games, they don't have that full high elf stature, the really big pointy ears, the more chiseled faces. Sort of what you would picture when you see a high elf. I kind of think of Hylians from The Legend of Zelda as more of like half-elf based characters.
That's a great point, because they sure look like humans, and they act like humans. They just have pointy ears.
They have pointy ears, yeah.
I'm glad you guys brought up the kind of the mix-up between, the humans or the elves or whatever they may be. I guess they could be something else, too. The whole argument I just gave about being put in a box with the dwarves and the elves, totally flip it with half-elf. I don't know where I belong on the half-elf. I've never played a half-elf. I've never desired to, right? Because I could be a wizard, I could be a witch, or I could be, a muggle. And, I'm a half-elf.
Yeah, well, and honestly, the way I feel about it is I find that half-elves, even though I feel like they are kind of put in a box, honestly. I feel like you can't get as creative with half-elves because you have to have a specific thing that happened to make you. You can have an elf come from any kind of elf lineage, but when it comes to half-elves, you have to come from, which I guess this happens with all races. It's just whenever you say, hey, this is a mix of these two races, I feel like that's a box. But at the same time, I love half-elves because they, one, have that charismatic feel. Half-elves make great bards, great warlocks.
That's true. That's true.
But also, I feel like they're kind of one of the races that can go whichever way you want. Even that charisma is going to help you no matter what. As long as you're comfortable kind of RPing and talking at the table, that charisma is going to help you no matter what. So whatever happens with your rolled stats or your point buy is really still up to you with the half-elf. Other races kind of like a full elf, I am almost expecting a caster, a fighter maybe, something with a dexterity in there. I'm
Ranger,
not really
of course.
Obviously, you can play a full elf, barbarian or something like that. It's just not what I think of at the time. Ranger fits really well. So I'm expecting them to fall into those more dexterous, sly categories. While with a half elf, I could see a half elf, getting a little barbaric. I could see a half elf who's like a really good gladiator or something like that. You can be a little more flavorful with it. Or you guys ever think of like a buff half elf? Like a really buff half elf who's got like the pointy ears and they might have like long flowing like elvish hair, or like it's silver hair and like pointy ears, but he's like got a full like buff humanoid build, like he's a berserker. Like that's a cool idea, and I can see a half elf doing that. But if you told me that you've got this like crazy, like I always see the full elves and like the high elves, the wood elves and everything as like hard gainers, like it's a really skinny guy in the real world, where I'm like, oh, they're a hard gainer, they can't get fat or like they can't get buff. And I always see elves like that for some reason, like with like the full elves, and I love playing characters like that, so it's fine with me. But realistically, there's nothing saying there can't be a buff elf.
Yeah, and that's one that's been on my back burner for so long. I'm gonna be a elf barbarian.
I want to do like a half elf barbarian.
Yeah, Chad, the swole half elf.
Yeah.
I'll say though, I do love. So this isn't in the player's handbook.
One second. I feel like a half elf barbarian is more of a Tyler.
What? You're right. No, you're right.
He's like,
you're right.
Yo, I'm fucking Tyler, man.
Only we think that's funny. That's an inside joke. You had to be there.
From college, sophomore year, you had to be there.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
I
I'm
walk
fucking
into
Tyler.
I walk into the tower and make a perception check. Damn, are there any Tylers around?
That guy's a Tyler.
Jeez.
Anyway, it's not in the player's handbook, but there is a variant option introduced in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide for half-elves that I just love, where you can get like a half, specific lineage. So half-elves naturally get skill versatility, so they get proficiency in 2 skills of your choice, which is already great, but you can choose to replace one of those skills with another elf feature. So any of the other elves that exist, high elf, wood elf, drow, sea elf. I'm pretty sure you can even do Eladrin if you really wanted to. You could be a half any of those things and then get one of their features as well, which really, just 35 movement speed and I'm a half elf. That's so, that just feels so good.
And I was, you did talk, like, put a little shade towards the Sword Coast Adventures guy, but I was reading through that a little bit earlier today. There's some solid lore. Like, I was just going through some locations because you guys are kind of back in the overworld in the campaign we're running. So I was going through some locations that I'm not that familiar with, especially ones that aren't featured in Storm King's Thunder. And I was reading through. I was like, there's some good lore in here. There's gods in the Pantheon that I was reading through, and I was like, oh, that's a really interesting god. I want to play a character based around that one. Like Mask. You guys ever heard of Mask? He's like a god of like thievery or whatever. Yeah, he's super cool. And I was like, oh, I want to play a character based around him. Or there's just like a lot of cool stuff in there where reading through, they got all the days of the week and the months and everything, which I was like, I could use a refresher on that. Go ahead and skim it over. Sword Coast Adventurers Guide, good DM purchase if you're running in Forgotten Realms.
I feel like the Sword Coast is the sprinkles on the ice cream, right? So you make your character or you build your world, whatever you happen to be building at the time creatively, and it's just, it's not quite where you need it. You need something a little extra. You just need something on top. You get a little Sword Coast in there. Put a little little Long Death Monk in there. Little change up the gods a little bit.
Yeah, Blade Singer's in there.
Yeah, little winged tiefling. Everyone loves that one.
See, no one has ever played that, but it is very cool.
Well, our old DM didn't allow it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that it hasn't been, reintroduced since it was introduced, so I'd probably, that's one that I'd leave as well. But if someone really wanted to play a winged tiefling, you pretty much lose all the cool stuff that tieflings get, so, I mean, I guess be my guest.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, you just get some wings.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, flying speed's good, but it's not like you could just play a fairy now. So now that that's featured, winged tiefling's balanced. Now that you can play a fairy.
Yeah, and you could always play Aarakocra as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've never had an Aarakocra at our table either.
And I don't plan to play one. I don't have really any ideas for it, and I don't know if I will.
Yeah, honestly, I can't get like the generic 5e artwork for an Aarakocra out of my head. If I were playing an Aarakocra, it would look just like that guy, and I don't want to look like that guy.
Exactly.
Fucking Uncle Sam.
Plus, I have so many cool ideas for ground-based characters, like the Jump Squad. I want to play the Jump Squad so bad, man. We released a TikTok recently, guys, about the Jump Squad, and I can't get it out of my head. I really want to play a full party of jumpers.
We can do it.
Yeah, we'll break it at some point and make something cool.
Do you feel like an Aarakocra would actually be a really good addition to the Jump Squad? Because you could actually paratroop in, right? You could have them drop the jumpers from a certain height and then bounce and hit them a couple times.
Ooh.
That would be pretty sick.
That would be pretty cool. I like that idea. Or we make a magic item that's like trampoline boots. And they like, you use a charge on them and the actual ground morphs into a trampoline and then throws you back up. And it's like a ratio depending on however high you fell from.
No, but then the trade-off is you shoot up twice as high as from, the distance that you were dropped from. So then all of a sudden, now you're falling way farther, which could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, yeah, I think it depends on what you're going for. Maybe you have two options. Like when you fall, you can trigger the jump to where you go twice as high, or you like take the jump to where you go half as high. Because you can do trampolines in different ways.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Or, you can use like half of it and go up to your normal height. Maybe we give like those three options. It's like, all right, I'm going for double height. I'm going to trampoline down and fly back up. Be crazy. I think it's a great magic item, and you guys forgot about it after this because I'm going to implement it at some point.
It's gone. I don't even know what you were talking
about.
It's
okay. It'll come up like in the next campaign, and you guys will be like, oh, those are those boots that Seth was talking about.
No, but it'll just seem like a weird memory at that point. I won't even think about it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. You think I listen to this podcast?
Oh, well, I do every Friday that it comes out. Ayo.
Of course. Of course I do.
So, I guess we're getting a little high up on the time. What's some of your favorite races?
Half-orc. Half-orc is my favorite race. I'm so glad you asked.
Okay, well, yeah, Zach, go ahead and go into why half-orc is your favorite.
Well, so they're really cool. I like so, all right. Now, this is going to sound, a little, I don't know how it sounds. But anyway, I like half-orcs because by default, if you think about orcs, you think about, oh, yeah, like the enemy in a video game. They're definitely not, what you think of as the hero. So I like that they've got sort of that underdoggy element to them.
In that realm, my introduction to orcs was actually in Skyrim. So I didn't know much about them until Skyrim. And in Skyrim, you could play an orc. So my entire life, I've been like, yeah, orcs are the good guys. Like, they're just normal people. Like, the entire time. Because my first time, like, actually getting a good an interaction with an orc in a video game was in Skyrim.
Well, dang. You see, I think of, like, moblins and shit. like from Zelda when I think about orcs.
Nope, I think of goblins when I think of moblins, and even then I feel like, man, am I really just killing them? Because I feel bad for the moblins.
Yeah, well, in Breath of the Wild, they're really cute.
Oh no, I'm thinking bokoblins in my head too.
Yeah, bokoblins, the smaller moblins that look like goblins, but the big goblin or the big moblins are moblins.
Yeah.
And they're kind of orc-like. Anyway, I really like half-orcs. All the same reasons I like half-elves. They're half-human. They're relatable. But they've got a little bit of an edge to them. By default, they get plus to strength, my favorite stat, of course. And then they get relentless endurance, which is an amazing feature that, honestly, it's just so cool. I don't care if it's not necessarily optimal compared to some of the others. I mean, it's still pretty great. But when you drop to 0 health once per long rest, you don't. You stay at 1 hit point, which is just so cool. You take like that killing blow and you say, "Rah!" and then you keep fighting. And it's really
like
cool.
adrenaline rushes through your body and you're able to stay awake.
Yeah, they also get dark vision, of course. They get menacing, so they get proficiency in intimidation, and they get savage attacker, which they get to add an extra hit or damage die when they roll a crit. It hardly ever comes up when I play a half orc, but it's definitely cool. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about them. My first character ever was a half orc as well, so that definitely endeared them to me. But just great, just great.
Drew, what's your favorite race?
Well, I'm kind of hyped up to play half orc now. I'm not gonna lie.
half orcs are badass.
But I would have to say my favorite race overall would be, going back to my origins, I really, really like tiefling.
I feel you.
I don't know what it is about. I just feel like they have a lot going on. They have a lot of flavor, and that's usually what I gravitate towards is the races or the classes that have a lot of a theming going on around them. But they're also very simple and they're relatable, easy to understand. You can do any voice you want, right? You could be a human looking, and you can have little horns if you want. There's just so many options with them, and that's before you get into their actual abilities, which I think are really cool. They start off with, I forget what it's called now, but you have resistance to fire, which
Hellish resistance,
which is super cool at any level. Being resistant to fire is just going to help you out no matter what. If you're going up against any sort of wizard or sorcerer, they're going to have firebolt, fireballs. You don't have to worry about as much, and that's before you end up taking classes that have evasion or cunning action, things like that would help you with that sort of a thing. And then moving forward with that, they get free magic, and it's not just one spell or 2 spells. They get 3 different spells.
Yeah,
that's cool. You get a little piece of a spellcaster embedded in your race that you actually level up and improve on over time. That's awesome, And I believe there are some other books that actually slightly change the tiefling, and you can get different kinds of spell combinations with it. But frankly, the ones you get are really cool. You get Thaumaturgy as a cantrip, which it's always nice to have a cantrip, right?
And Thaumaturgy is a great one.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Thaumaturgy.
But the coolest one by far, and I think one of the biggest staples when you think of a tiefling, is Hellish Rebuke. Right?
Oh, yeah.
A few times a day. I believe it's a few times a day. Could be wrong. It might just be once. Either way,
I think it's just once.
It's super cool. As a reaction, when you're hit with a melee attack, you just blast fire out at whatever hits you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And it's upcast, too, because it's an actual spell in the player handbook, and it's upcast, I think, level 2 or 3.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
2nd level.
That's so cool.
No, I think Tiefling's one of my favorite races as well. I played a bard one time named Zarakir, and he was a fun time. I love playing Tieflings as bards just because they have that extra charisma, and I feel like they're one of the misunderstood races. Like there are people with a little bit of a bias against Tieflings, and there are people who just like Tieflings in general. I feel like Tieflings are very much a fun race, and they're passed off as this like chaotic evil demon race, but they're not. They're not at all. They're regular people just like goblins and kobolds and orcs.
Yeah, but tieflings are definitely one of the more customizable races.
Yeah,
as
you
well.
can do a lot with them. Like you can be a tiefling fighter, barbarian. Like and any class that you go with tiefling, it's gonna make sense to me.
Yeah,
Which I have not played a tiefling monk, but being able to like dark magic like punch and stuff through a monk sounds so cool.
Oh, that does seem really cool. Way of Shadows, of course.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that'd be sick. You could even flavor it so it's like fire shadow in a sense. Like
yeah,
you
like
flame in and
like,
out.
like dark flames around your fist when you're punching. I love that.
That's really cool.
So thematically, I really want to play one of the variant tieflings from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes because
there's a lot of good ones.
Yeah, well, so they're based also on like iconic archdevils. So the player's handbook version of a tiefling is like descended from Asmodeus's bloodline.
Right.
But then you can choose all the others. So like oh, well, I want to be a descendant of Zariel, which gets I believe branding smite and a couple of other things. They get strength instead of intelligence or charisma, one of the two.
That's cool.
Yeah. They're just really, they're just so cool. There's a ton of them though, and they all get different spells. And I like that idea of a tiefling who's like deeply connected to their, ancestor. And maybe even if you're a warlock, they talk to them regularly, like, "Oh, hey, mom," just Zariel. They're just calling you on the phone. Yeah, I know you don't want to hear from me, but thanks for these powers. Go away. I need to get my sword back.
Talking about the powers, I've never heard of a tiefling having their 3 spells taken away by their ancestral bloodline, but that would be kind of cool. Something I wouldn't expect anyway.
Yeah, I would think that it's probably inherent in their blood.
It's more sorcery based,
Yeah. But they're definitely cool. I don't know. We haven't talked about the other ones yet.
So here's what I'm thinking. As far as my favorite race, I like elves. I've already made that clear. I think elves are my favorite in general, just because they give me a lot to work with. They're the kinds of characters I like to play, more of like the fast character, the character that gets a lot of slashes in a small amount of time, the one that's going to go in, get a hit in, and get out, as well as your casters, your wizards, your sorcerers, things like that. So elves are overall my favorite, but we have talked about elves for long enough. Guys, I think that we're just going to have to come back to this.
No!
I think we are. Yeah, we're pretty long-winded at this point. We're gonna have to come back to it because I know if we keep talking about the other half of the races we have to get to here in just the player's handbook, this is gonna be a 2-hour-long podcast. And to be honest, I think around between 30 minutes and an hour is a good spot for us. So
fine.
Whatever, Dad.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Table Talk Friday. If you want to find more of us, you can find us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Well, not Instagram yet. It'll be there, though, I promise. Twitter, at Table Talk Friday on all of these platforms, as well as you can follow us on all of your podcast services to come back every single week for our new episodes. And from there, guys, I think we just need a character to take us out.
It's me, Oswin. I do the generic dwarf voice, the one that you expect all dwarves to do. Well, remember to eat your vegetables and mine for gold.
Thank you for listening to Table Talk Friday. For more information, advice, questions, comments, and concerns, you can email the boys at tabletalkfriday@gmail.com. And if you'd like to tell your own stories, why don't you hit them up there? Send an inquiry or something, a sending spell. Thank you very much for listening, and please follow and come back next week. Goodbye. Bye-bye.